Starting us off at number 10, we have the evil Christmas legend Krampus. While Krampus was made into a 2015 horror/comedy movie, there really isn't anything funny about this legend. Krampus is the anti-Santa Claus and really undermines the holiday spirit we all know and love. Legend says that Krampus is supposed to scare the kids on the naughty list into behaving better, but it gets really dark when we take a look at how he goes about scaring them. Krampus either beats the kids with birch branches, which is already gruesome and evil enough, but he will also tie kids up in a sack and haul them off to hell. Krampus is mainly a German and Austrian tale, but he is definitely recognized in other countries who have their own versions. I don't know about you, but I'd really rather get a lump of coal under the tree than get kidnapped by Krampus.
Alright, next up at number 9, we have the Momo Challenge. So this internet legend spread like wildfire throughout social media. Momo is actually this user, you guys are seeing it on your screen right now, absolutely terrifying. Well, whoever's behind this, I have no idea, but they got people to perform very dangerous acts and self-harm. Back in 2018, which isn't that long ago, this challenge went worldwide after a 12-year-old girl killed herself after doing the Momo Challenge. We still don't know who Momo is. We don't know who is behind it. People like Kim Kardashian posted on her Instagram story pleading for YouTube to remove all these challenge videos. Well, legends have it that Momo is still alive.
In our number 8 spot today, we have the killer in the backseat, or the high beams legend. This legend originated from folklorist Carlos Drake in 1968. The legend says that there is a woman who is driving and being followed by another car. She begins to panic as the person following her keeps flashing their high beams at her, they're tailgating her, and they even ram her vehicle. When she finally makes it to what she thinks is a safe place, she comes to find that the person following her was actually trying to warn her of a murderer in her back seat, and they flashed their high beams every time he tried to sit up and attack her, causing them to duck back down. If you've driven on an unlit highway before, you know how annoying people in their high beams can be. But maybe I need to take a second thought before just dismissing them.
And moving right along, in at number 7, we have the Devil's Chair. This is a very popular urban legend in Florida. Well, let me know what states that you guys are from and what is the most popular urban legends you guys have. Let me know in the comment section below. And also make sure to hit the like button because it really helps us out. Alright, getting back into this, the Devil's Chair was turned into a movie. And you know what? Let me show you guys a quick trailer of that.
During the 1950s, this place was an institute for mental health care.
An asylum.
This is where the incident supposedly took place.
Is this real life right now? It's a pretty haunted chair with a ton of dark history behind it. I'm pretty sure it's like an electric chair or some sort of torture device. People have seen ghosts in the chair and maybe the devil himself. If you sit in the chair, the devil will whisper horrible things into your ear that will change you forever. I think, you know what? Let's not test this one out. And let's quickly move on to number 6 before we get in trouble with that one. Well, let me take you guys over to the state of Missouri. What you guys are looking at right now is Zombie Road. Well, this is a real place and it's Missouri's most haunted places. It's about 2 miles long through a valley, probably a valley of death. The road is always closed up at nighttime, yeah, for good. People have seen child ghosts and tortured souls of working men killed in the industrial accidents. I have footage from YouTube channel Ghost Hunters. Take a look at this. Okay, I mean, this looks like a road that I would never want to go on.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Vanishing Lady. Let us know in the comments if you've heard of this one before. A daughter and her mother are abroad in Paris for the World's Fair when the mother falls ill. The daughter leaves the hotel room in order to get some medicine for her mother, but when she returns, she finds that her mother has disappeared, their hotel room doesn't exist, and no one at the hotel can remember seeing either of them. Apparently, the mother had died while her daughter was out, and in an attempt to cover up any bad publicity, the hotel got rid of the body and pretended like the pair never existed. The daughter ends up getting committed to a psychiatric hospital where she spends the rest of her life. It would be so scary to know that something is true, but have everyone around you telling you the opposite. In our number 4 spot today, we've got the Bunny Man. While this sounds like it could be very cute, it absolutely is not. This one originated in Fairfax County, Virginia, and is basically just the story of a man dressed in a bunny suit who attacks people with an axe. The first report of the Bunny Man came on October 19, 1970, when a man and his wife were stopping in to visit an uncle. They were sitting in their parked car across the street from the house when they saw something moving in the rearview mirror. Just a few moments later, one of the front windows was smashed. When the couple looked up, they saw a man wearing the bunny costume screaming at them. Luckily, the car was still turned on, so they were able to make a quick escape, but as they drove away, they found a hatchet on the floor of the car. A man with a hatchet is already scary enough, but there's something so disturbing about him being dressed in a bunny costume.
And just like that, number 3, have you guys heard of the Candy Lady? Well, I didn't either until now. This very scary urban legend comes from Texas. The Candy Lady allegedly lures children to their doom by enticing them with candy. Well, you know what? If this woman put a Kit Kat bar down, she'd for sure lure me into wherever she wants me to go. I'm pretty easy when it comes to candy and chocolates. Well, this lady would bring goodies to kids' windowsills just before bedtime. The plan is, the parents go to sleep, and when the kids start eating, yum yum yum, when they start eating the candy, boom, you get snatched out your window. She will grab you. The Candy Lady would feast on these sugar high bodies. Well, pretty messed up urban legend if you guys asked me. And is it just me, or does it seem like parents might have made this one up for kids to scare the heck out of them? They don't eat candy before bedtime. If I heard this urban legend, I would never eat candy again. I think these parents are trying to save on dental bills.
In our number 2 spot, we've got the babysitter and the man upstairs. If you've seen the 2006 movie When a Stranger Calls, you know just how creepy this one is. The story goes that a teenager is babysitting some children for a family. She begins receiving phone calls from some sort of stalker asking her if she's checked on the sleeping children. The first call she believes is just a prank call, but when the same call keeps coming over and over, she begins to get very frightened and calls the police, who say that they will trace the next call. When they trace the next call, it is revealed that the caller is calling from inside the house, and he was calling from the phone upstairs after having murdered the children. It's safe to say, I didn't do a lot of babysitting after watching this movie.
And finally, in at number 1, we have Pennywise.
We all know Pennywise from the horror movie It, but did you guys know it might have been based on a true story?
Well, the story might have been inspired by John Wayne Gacy, the man who's famously known as the Killer Clown. He was an American serial killer, a sex offender who might have killed over 33 people.
He would lure young boys into his home, and once he got them there, he would pretend he was performing a magic trick in order to handcuff them, leaving them totally defenseless. There were a few times where he even had what he called a double, where he would kill 2 victims in one night.
A lot of the victims were buried in his own backyard, which is absolutely insane.
This story gives me goosebumps every time.
Number 10, the Deer Dew. I always find it fascinating how we can find similar breadcrumbs around the world that depict legends of vampires. The Celtic depiction of the vampire is the Deer Dew, and the story behind her is heartbreaking. The Deer Dew once was a breathtaking, beautiful woman who had given her love to an innocent farm boy. But her father was greedy and arranged her to marry an abusive chieftain for wealth and land. No amount of begging could save her from her fate, and unfortunately, the marriage went through. After the wedding day, the woman fell into a deep depression, not eating or drinking until her body wasted away. Her lost love visited the grave every single day, wishing her to return, but come the year anniversary of her death, it was revenge that brought her back. She went straight to her father's bed and sucked the life from him. Not yet sated, she went of course to her brutal husband, and finding him surrounded by women in lustful acts, flew into a rage and not only sucked out his soul, but drained all the blood from his body. Every year on the anniversary of her death, she rises to seduce young men before devouring their blood. So, to this day, on the anniversary of her death in Waterford, people place rocks on her grave so she cannot rise from the earth. But sometimes, if the rocks aren't heavy enough, the Dear Dew escapes, seeking to sate her bloodlust. Number 9, the Dullahan. The Dullahan is a foreboding headless horseman who's set to ride during festival days. He is said to be one of the most terrifying creatures who resides in the spirit world. Some consider him the angel of death. He rides a jet black stallion, and his flowing black cape blazes behind him while he rides. But his head does not sit on his shoulders, but is held in his hand. It is said that his eyes can see for miles at night, but the most terrifying thing about him is if you see him. If you don't avert your eyes as he rides past, you may get struck by a bucket of blood, or lose sight in one of your eyes. But beware if his steed begins to slow and approach you, for if he stops before you and calls your name, your soul will be sucked from your body. His only weakness is gold, so instead of trying to outrun him, carry a piece of gold in your pocket to ward him off. You know, just because everybody has gold, I guess. Number 8, speaking of creatures you don't want to encounter at night, next up we have the Banshee. The Banshee can appear in many forms, so some say she appears as a beautiful woman in a shroud, or a headless naked hag holding a bucket of blood. But even more terrifying than her appearance is her song. The Banshee is an omen of death and is said to appear to warn of violent death, either of a loved one or for the listener. Some Banshees even do the killing themselves, while other legends say they are spirits tied to their loved ones and sing songs of care and concern for the ones about to pass. At one time in Ireland, it was considered blasphemous not to believe in Banshees, and some older generations still believe to this day. Real or superstition, the legend of the Banshee is a haunting story of an inescapable fate. Number 7, Balor and the Evil Eye. Balor was a legendary ancient being who existed long before the Tuatha De Danann, a race of godlike people with supernatural powers. When Balor was a young man, he spied on his father and his druids as they performed a spell to lay waste to the land. Vapors from the spell infected his eye, enlarging it and granting it the power of death. Balor himself was said to be enormous, so large in fact that it took 4 men to lift his eyelid open for use. Whatever met his gaze would wither and die, including grass, trees, and even turn men to stone. But on the same day he was created, the druids prophesied he would be killed by his grandson. So, of course, he locked his daughter away. But of course, someone snuck in, had 3 babies with her, and though Balor drowned 2 of them, the third snuck away and finally killed him one day in battle. Number 6, the Kelpie. Also known as the Nope Horse. This is the creature grannies warn their grandchildren about to keep them away from the water. And no, I'm not talking about the Australian dog breed. That's adorable. Kelpies are horses that linger near rivers and bodies of water that seem harmless at first, but if you try and ride them, you will stick to them and they will drag you to the depths to consume you, like a sticky horse. But if horses don't tempt you, they also can appear as beautiful women to lure you in with their feminine wiles. Or they can appear as hairy humanoids that wait in trees and leap on unsuspecting travelers and smash them. Depictions of these creatures are absolutely terrifying, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to be dragged underwater by a very sticky horse. They can also summon up sudden floods and rapids to drown unsuspecting victims. However, Kelpies do have a weak spot. If you do find them disguised as horses, if you get a hold of their bridle, it must serve you, giving you the strength and stamina of over 10 horses. Number 5, Carmen. If you're keeping track of evil witches, make sure to add this woman to your list. Carmen was an evil witch who terrorized the land along with her 4 sons: darkness, evil, and violence. Yeah. She placed a vicious blight on the crops of Ireland until the gods of Tuatha De Danann brought their magic against her. They drove her sons across the sea and imprisoned her, but were tasked with throwing a festival in her name each year, otherwise the land would be faced with a blight. Carmen reportedly died of grief in 600 BCE, and the festival is held every 3 years on August 1st. Number 4, the Fae. If you're already a fan of Irish folklore, then you may already be familiar with imps or the Fae. And the reasons why we fear them. Fairy lore, I think, is the next vampire craze. They're mysterious, immortal, powerful, and very sexy. What else could you want? But you may want to think twice before wandering into the woods hoping for some handsome Fae man to take you away. Probably not a good idea. Anyone who knows the lore of the Fae will warn you not to take them lightly. They love to mess with mortals and are notoriously known for stealing babies in the dead of night to replace them with possessed changelings. Though they could sometimes be friendly, they often look for ways to trick you. So, if you do want to get on their good side, here are a few very important rules to follow. Number 1, do not call them fairy. It is an insult. Call them good neighbor, imp, elf, or Seelie White. Number 2, always turn your socks inside out when going for a hike. The imps will not be able to lead you astray and make you impossibly lost. Number 3, if they offer you food, deny it. It's a sure way to become trapped in the fairy realm. But like, if that's what you want, I mean, do it. Though I would expect some torment if you do, so probably don't. Number 4, never lie to them. They will never lie to you, but they have a way of twisting words. But if you want respect, you gotta give respect. Number 5, if you accept a gift, you must give one greater in return, but do not say thank you. It means you owe whatever they ask in return. And lastly, number 6, carry iron or salt with you to protect against the darker imps. Anyways, there is a couple tips for you, but if you do come across one, don't brag about it. They hate that. Number 3, the Dark Man. Now, I mentioned that some imps are mischievous and even dangerous, but there is one being even they fear, the Dark Man. He who lurks, he who stalks, the Dark Druid. Even whispering his name invites his attention. So let's hope I'm not in trouble here, guys. Some say he's a shadow man with malevolent powers. Others say he serves the Queen of the Cid, coldly and without remorse, claiming anyone she calls for. Those he took were never heard from again. The fact that our good neighbors fear him so much is enough to say that we should too, especially considering the story of the taking of Finn's wife. The Dark Man fell in love with a beautiful woman who spurned his love, so of course he cursed her by turning her into a fawn. The only way she could be released was if she found her true love, and that she did. Once she entered the house of the wise Finn McCool, she was safe. For years they lived together until Finn went off to battle. When he returned home, he discovered that she'd been deceived and taken by the Dark Druid who appeared in his likeness. Finn never saw her again. Number 2, the Avertalk. Some may know Vlad the Impaler as the main inspiration for the character of Dracula, but considering Bram Stoker's Irish heritage, the origins of this famous villain may have been closer to home. The Irish king Avertalk ruled between Dungiven and Garva and was abhorred by his people. But despite his awful reputation, his name isn't that intimidating. It's actually an old Irish name that means deaf fellow, and many believe he was also a man of small stature. Some say he was a dwarf, others say that he just lost his legs in an accident so he was shorter. He was an evil and cruel wizard, hated and feared by his clans. He was also insanely jealous and suspected his wife of having an affair. So one night he slipped out a window and tried to peer into a room to catch her in the act, but instead he slipped and fell to his death. Yay, I guess. The people, relieved to see his demise, buried him right away, standing upright in the ground as for his kingliness he needed to be, sitting upright in the ground, which was tradition. But the next morning, he appeared demanding bowls of blood from his people, freshly poured from their wrists. The people begged a neighboring chieftain to save them, and he tried to kill him not once, but 3 times, yet still he would appear the next morning, demanding blood. The chieftain sought the advice from a neighboring saint, and this time when he killed him, he buried him upside down, stabbed him in the heart with a stake from the yew tree, piled ash wood on top of him, and placed atop the grave a heavy stone slab. You can still visit the grave to this day, but locals still fear the sight, and some have even had very eerie experiences. Ooh. Number 1. The Slua. There's one night a year that you should fear the Slua, spirits of death who show no mercy to whoever crosses their path. The only way to dissuade them from taking your soul is if you offer up another soul in return. You may know this night as Halloween, but those who believe in Celtic folklore call it Samhain. Some say they used to be imps who became twisted and warped by dark magic. It is said they fly from the west in a dark mass, seeking souls to drag back with them into the darkness. On Samhain, fires were forbidden so as not to attract them to your door, and windows on the west side of the house were locked shut. They are also locked tight if someone in the house is ill or dying, as the Slua often delight in stealing souls before they can give their last rites. But you can also call them to you by saying their name aloud. So, like, guess I'm screwed.
Alright, so we'll start off with this creepy list. And at number 10, with the girl who refused to talk about her Bloody Mary experience. I know for me, I didn't want to talk about it for a long time. I couldn't believe what I saw. One night at a slumber party, all of the girls dared one of them to go into the bathroom and call out Bloody Mary's name 3 times. The friend accepted this dare, but she was also so terrified to death. After 15 minutes had passed, they heard the poor girl scream, and she was struggling to open the door. When her friends finally got the door open, the girl in the washroom was whimpering, shaking, and crying for help. Her arms were covered in bruises and cuts, and even to this day, she apparently refuses to talk about what happened in that bathroom. Classic Bloody Mary scares us in at number 9. 3 friends were hanging out on Friday the 13th. This is the day I would not summon her, so they were talking about urban legends, especially Bloody Mary. So they all convinced one another to try the ritual for themselves. The 3 of them gathered candles, went into a pitch black bathroom, and waited until 2:55 a.m. a.m. They chanted Bloody Mary 13 times, and all of a sudden they saw a swirl of smoke and a figure of an old woman that appeared in the mirror. All three girls instantly screamed, turned on the lights, and Bloody Mary vanished, but that doesn't mean that they're safe. Now, in at number 8, we have Queen Mary I. The origins of Bloody Mary varies from country to country, but the most popular theory is that Queen Mary is the spirit of Bloody Mary because during her reign as queen, during the Tudor period, she was nicknamed Bloody Mary because she had an unusual amount of miscarriages, and she was also very quick to order executions during her 5 years as Queen of England. So yes, there was a true story behind Bloody Mary. In some versions of Bloody Mary, the person is supposed to chant her name 3 times, and then you're actually supposed to say, "I stole your baby" or "I killed your baby." When I was 10, I didn't know that was a thing, so maybe I summoned something else? This is pretty awful for kids trying in the bathroom. The mirror that cracked pierces its way into number 7. A group of girls at a summer camp thought it would be fun to summon Bloody Mary. Personally, this isn't my idea of a good time, but that's just me. So these girls ran into a dark bathroom and they chanted her name 3 times. At first nothing happened, so the girls were mocking Bloody Mary, but then the mirror began to violently crack and all of the girls ran outside of the bathroom except for one because she was just so paralyzed with fear. It happens, you're so afraid you just can't move. Well, when she was alone with Bloody Mary in the bathroom, she saw a flash of movement in the mirror as if someone was standing right beside her. Eventually, she was able to get up and run for her life. That next morning, they laughed about the incident, but they all vowed to never attempt to summon her ever again. Alright, number 6, the Japanese version of Bloody Mary. Different regions and cultures may have their own versions of Bloody Mary, and this is the urban legend that is haunting Japan. According to the legend, if someone goes into the 3rd stall of the girl's bathroom on the 3rd floor of a school, then knocks 3 times and asks, "Are you there?" the spirit will answer, "I am here." If I hear that, I would be freaking out. And then if you choose to enter the stall, there will be a small girl wearing a red skirt waiting for you. Is this real life right now? What is going on in Japan? Some people have claimed that after summoning her, Haku-san's bloody hand can be seen from under the door. Some people have even said that if you enter the stall, you'll be eaten by a 3-headed lizard. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna stay away from, the 3rd stall on the 3rd floor in a school. Dead silence brings us to number 5. 2 friends just finished watching a horror movie, and one of their friends wanted to scare the other one. So she took her friend into a bathroom and chanted Bloody Mary 3 times and waited for her to appear. After a couple of minutes, she disappeared and decided to turn on the lights when all of a sudden she saw a 3rd reflection in the mirror. When she looked closer, she saw a black and white woman with her mouth wide open. This sent shivers down their spines because they were expecting that this figure would start screaming because why is her mouth open? However, this creepy spirit remained silent and began to lift up her arms. Her hands were drenched in blood and her fingernails were actually torn off. Bloody Mary reached for the girls and touched one of them on the shoulders. The 2 girls desperately screamed for help, turned on all the lights, and ran for their lives. Well, I guess it's safe to say that these 2 are never going to attempt to summon Bloody Mary ever again or use that bathroom. In fact, I would never use any bathroom again. Bloody Mary with cuts on her face slices in at number 4. During a sleepover, 9-year-old Katie and her friends decided that they wanted to have a little fun, so they tried to summon Bloody Mary. They all brought candles into the bathroom, turned out all the lights, and began chanting her name. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. And then when they saw an old woman with cuts and scrapes all over her wrinkled face, she also had chains tightly looped around her neck and shoulders. The girls were so frightened, they all began to scream, and suddenly the shower curtains burst into flames. They all ran out of the bathroom, and her older brother was the one who put out the fire. These girls were blamed for the fire, but they all know what the truth was that night. It was Bloody Mary. The possession comes into number 3. When Amanda was only 12 years old, she attempted to summon Bloody Mary, and ever since that night, she believes that Bloody Mary's spirit opened up a portal that allowed demons and ghosts to enter into her soul. As she grew up, she believes that she was possessed by demons, so she became addicted to drugs. She suffered from psychosis and was even institutionalized for a month. Amanda has even attempted to perform many exorcisms without any success, so now lots of of people believe that if you attempt the Bloody Mary ritual, you are opening up a portal for demonic spirits that can really harm you. So listening to that, I don't know what I did as a 10-year-old, but did I just open up a portal? Moving into number 2, we have the red reflection. Lauren and her friend were driving one night and they started talking about the scariest urban legends. Bloody Mary came up and they thought it would be cool to see if this urban legends was true or not. So they pulled over and went inside a gas station bathroom. They turned off the lights, splashed water on the mirror, spun around and chanted Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. When these girls looked into the mirror, they discovered that one of the reflections began to turn red. They kept staring at the reflection for a couple more minutes, and then they ran out of the bathroom in fear for their life. Once they were far enough, they realized that one friend's face was covered in blood, and once they cleaned it up, she had tiny scratch marks all over her face. Finally, in a number 1 spot, we have the boy who died performing a Bloody Mary ritual. This is definitely the worst case scenario when attempting to summon this evil spirit, and although this might just be an urban legend, it's still enough for me to not want to attempt to summon her, ever again, because I've already done it when I was 10. This urban legend focuses around 2 friends who wanted to provoke Bloody Mary. They summoned her by writing 666 on the mirror with red lipstick. They lit some candles and only one of them stayed in the bathroom because they thought it wouldn't work if there was, more than one person inside. After he chanted her cursed name, the candles went out, the door was locked, and the friend couldn't get into the bathroom to save him. After 15 minutes of trying to break in, he finally got in and he saw his friend's lifeless body resting on the sink. Not sure what happened, but he died.
Coming into number 10, we have the legend of the black-eyed children. Forget the black-eyed peas, meet the black-eyed children. I've said it before, I'll say it again, children ghosts creep me out. They're the worst kinds of ghosts. Kids are creepy, end of really, but kid ghosts, ah. Apparently there are some kind of creepy black-eyed children stalking the streets of Abilene in Texas. The story comes from a local journalist, Brian Bethel, who said that in 1996 he was in the parking lot of a movie theater when he popped on his inner car light to write a check. 96 and checks. See, this wouldn't happen now. 2 words. E-transfer. Wait, is that 1 word? Either way, I absolutely knew that archaic banking was a road to evil. Back to the story. Noticing the light in his car, 2 kids came up to his window, which he rolled down to see what they wanted. Now the kids looked between 9 and 12 years old, and they asked him for a ride. He said they had a very uneasy feeling about them, and after a while he noticed that their eyes were totally black. He wound up his window and got the heck out of there, but his story was enough to go down in Abilene legend. Coming in at number 9, we have the Candy Lady. Who loves candy? I love candy. Get me a dip and dab and a strawberry lace. Although we have to say the Candy Lady of Texas is enough to make me give up caramels for life, which is a shame because caramel's such a dream. So the Candy Lady is said to have been a woman called Clara Crane. She lived in Texas around the turn of the 20th century. She was said to have been married to an older man, and the pair had a child called Marcella. Sadly, Marcella was killed in a freak accident, and Clara blamed her husband and then went mad, reportedly killing him with poisoned caramel. She was then taken to North Texas Lunatic Asylum but released a few years later. This is when candy started showing up on windowsills, luring in kids. Later, a number of kids across the state went missing, and one farmer was said to have found rotten children's teeth in a caramel wrapper on his land. The urban legend goes that the Candy Lady will start by leaving a kid candy to win their trust. Then she'll abduct them and stab them with a fork. I shouldn't laugh, but forks are kind of like the comedy side of utensils, right? From Candy Lady to Donkey Lady at number 8. Donkey Lady, now I've heard it all. Apparently ye olde Donkey Lady haunts a bridge over Elm Creek in San Antonio, Texas. The origin story of the ghost dates back almost 200 years to the mid-1800s. When settlers were living on the banks of Elm Creek, a husband and wife had a small wooden farmhouse and were making a living with a small number of livestock. One day, one of their donkeys or mules was grazing in the area when a young man from the town came across it. This man was not a nice man, but he was a wealthy man. He was the son of an important town leader. The young man teased the donkey and hit it with a stick, to which the donkey fairly responded by biting him. I'd bite someone if they hit me with a stick too. Retaliating, the man started heavily beating the donkey. Hearing their mule being attacked, the couple emerged and told the man to get away, throwing rocks at him for hurting their valuable animal. The man had a bit of Prince Joffrey entitlement moment, and he screamed that his father would hear about this, and to be honest, hear about it he did. He brought a bunch of friends to the farmhouse to torch the place. When the husband intervened, he was shot, as were his sons. The wife's dress caught fire and she helplessly watched her loved ones die. As she was engulfed in flames, she screamed running down the road. She began to burn as she threw herself into the creek. Her body was never found, but her wails are said to still be heard along the stretch of the road. If a car stops for too long, it is said that she appears screaming with her arms outstretched on the bridge. Some even report a body falling on the bonnet of the car, but when they stop, there's nothing there. Coming into number 7, we have Arlington's Screaming Bridge / Hell's Gate. According to many Texans, going down the Arlington Screaming Bridge and listening out for the shrieks of the dead is some kind of local rite of passage. On a winter's night in 1961, a car full of 6 Arlington teenage girls fell off a burned out wooden bridge and onto the rail tracks next to a creek. This creek had a little bridge over it that's still there today. Now the driver didn't realize that the bridge was out, drove over it, crashed. 3 of the girls died as a result of the impact, 1 suffered a brain injury and 2 others were injured. Those responsible for burning the bridge were 4 boys who went to the same high school as the girls, resulting in a big local scandal and tragedy. The bridge over the creek still stands and people refer to it as the Screaming Bridge in memory of the girls who died. The spot near the bridge may also be cursed. In 1994, 2 people were killed in a truck when the driver tried to outrace a train at the crossing. Curse or just idiocy? I don't know. Coming into number 6, we have the White Lady of Rio Frio. So the Frio River is a beautiful spot near Rio Frio in Texas. On a summer's day, you may see picnickers hanging out by the water enjoying the weather, but some say they've had a far spookier experience. Many people that visit the Frio River have reported a strange white mist hovering over the water. Some say it's a strange microclimate, but others cite the story of the Lady of Frio. The story goes that back in the 1900s, a young girl called Maria Juarez was the prettiest girl in the canyon. She was young and had an elder sister whom she loved deeply. Her sister had children with a man called Gregorio, who unfortunately cared more about Maria than a sister-in-law. Maria helped raise her sister's children and dreamed that someday she would meet someone, marry them, and have kids of her very own. She thought all of her dreams had come true when she met Anselmo, a dashing young man who seemed to return her affections. Sadly, this angered Gregorio, who told Maria that he loved her and wanted to be with her. When she rebuffed him because of her sister and Anselmo, he shot her through the heart by the lake. Now her spirit is said to haunt the spot to this day. Adding a level of legitimacy to the story, there is an unmarked grave in a Frio cemetery said to belong to Maria, the White Lady who died an unmarried virgin. Coming into number 5, we have El Muerto. The El Muerto tale is truly terrifying. Back during the gold rush era, people thought that there was gold to be found in Texas. On top of that, the USA-Mexico border was hotly contested around this area, with an area of no man's land between the 2 countries. In this area, bandits were rife and Texas Rangers were around to keep them in check. One ranger, William Bigfoot Wallace, wanted to teach the bandits a lesson after one persistent criminal, known simply as Vidal, stole a bunch of Mustang horses. When he was in court, Bigfoot Wallace and his ranger friends chopped off Vidal's head, sat his body on a horse, attached his hands to the reins, and strung his head to the saddle. This was supposed to teach other would-be bandits a lesson not to mess with the Texas Rangers. Some poor sod then had to deal with finding the horse and its deceased cargo, which would be absolutely awful. Despite eventually being taken down from the horse, legend has it that Vidal rides on through the Rio Grande area today, and his ghost is dubbed as El Muerto. Coming into number 4, we have the Dancing Devil of El Cameroncito. A dancing Texas urban legend. I am so down for this. Apparently the dancing devil is local only to El Cameroncito, so ladies of other towns, no worries if a man is asking you to dance, you're probably safe. Ladies in Cameroncito though, watch out. So basically a legend has it that in the 1970s, a man in a dapper suit would ask beautiful ladies to dance with him. While they didn't find him beautiful, they felt compelled to dance. As he danced, women would be swept up. One day, a woman noticed the man she was dancing with had hooves for feet and that everyone near them was staring in horror. Realizing she was dancing with the devil, she ran away. The devil, however, remained. Now I always keep my demons in my dancing shoes. Coming into number 3, we have Goatman. Goatman, 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 Goatman. Fun to say, fun to talk about. There are a couple of legends surrounding the Goatman of Old Alton Bridge in Denton County. The bridge is locally dubbed Goatman's Bridge, and some say that is because there is a goat-like demon that haunts the nearby forest. But others turn to a more elaborate tale of a local goat farmer. Oscar Washburn was a black goat farmer who was known for for being an honest businessman, and he was a well-liked member of the community. Unfortunately, a successful black man caught the attention of the KKK, who was said to have abducted him in August 1938. Reportedly, they tied a noose around his neck and threw him over the old Alton Bridge into the river below. When they went to bring up his body, they found that the noose was empty. Frustrated, the clan went to his house and slaughtered his wife and children. Washburn's body was never found, but a lot of paranormal enthusiasts will tell you that if you drive out over the bridge at night without your headlights on, the old goat man will be standing on the other side to greet you. Some also report being touched or grabbed by a spirit, and others say there are weird flashing lights in the nearby forest. Coming into number 2, we have the ghost of Fort Phantom Hill. Fort Phantom is one of the most well-preserved historic sites in Texas, with original architecture dating back to the mid-1850s. Fort Phantom was built as a safe stop for immigrants headed to the Californian gold fields. The story behind the name of Phantom Hill seems to be twofold. On the one hand, the fort is said to look really high up on a plateau from afar, but when you get close, it looks level, so it disappears like a phantom. The other story is that one night while a sentry was keeping watch, he fired on a Native American who was on the hill. When he went to go and investigate, he didn't find a body. When the team at the whole fort went out to look for a band of natives, they couldn't find any evidence of them ever being nearby. This ghost on the hill is said to re-emerge every now and then, confusing those who watch from the garrison. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most well-known Texas urban legends ever. We have the Houston Batman. So first, I was like, Batman? Hell yes, get me there. But then I delved further into this legend and I realized that they don't mean like the superhero. No. The Houston Batman is also known as the Houston Horror and is a winged creature that has regularly been sighted in Houston, Texas. Now this creature is a bit like the Mothman of the Mothman prophecies, and I don't like a big moth. The story of the winged menace dates back to 1953 when a woman and her neighbors were sitting on their porch in East 3rd Street, Houston. 23-year-old housewife Hilda Walker said she looked up over the lawn and saw the shadow of a huge moth. When she looked up, she saw something huge then fly into a pecan tree. Her and her neighbors thought that the monster was around 6.5 feet tall, although they weren't totally sure what they'd seen. 14-year-old Judy Mayer, who was also sat on the porch, screamed in fear as she got a square-on look at the monster. He was described as a man, but with wings, huge wings, and a weird, strange yellow haze around him. Mrs. Walker reported the incident to the police and spoke to local news outlets. The Batman/Mothman may have been spotted once again by Houston Bel Air theatre workers in the 1990s, and the legend lives on today. Some suspect a government cover-up is at play, as vigilantes seeking the Batman discovered that some years after the initial incident, Mrs. Walker's neighborhood was razed to make way for a new part of the interstate.
At number 10, we have the Alamo. Perfect place to start. Remember the Alamo, baby. This was the site of one of the greatest battles in American history. It's a place where many soldiers on both the American and Mexican side lost their lives, and some of those ghosts still haunt the monument. People who walk through the building feel all sorts of classic ghost happenings. They hear people crying out in pain, shouting, feel cold spots, and even see men in uniform walking through the building. It should be no surprise that their souls have never left the site. It's thought that hundreds of men are buried there from all the battles. You make a mass grave like that and it's a surefire way to get some spooky people hanging around until the end of time. But the legends go even deeper than that. A small Mexican force was sent to destroy the Alamo back in 1836. The contingent of men made the choice to turn back and run. But why would they do this? If the mission was successful, it would have been a major blow to the Americans. The Mexican soldiers said that the Alamo was defended by ghosts holding swords that were engulfed in flame. Ghost troopers, you can never go wrong with those. At number 9, we have the Curse of the Ruins. How many times does a building have to crumble to the ground before people say the land is cursed and we're just gonna leave it controlled by the dark forces that live there? Well, in San Antonio it sounds like 2. The Hotwell Hotel and Spa ruins are the site of what used to be one of the swankiest places in all of Texas. At the turn of the 20th century, many celebrities would use this place as a rest stop as they came to travel throughout America. But then one day the entire thing burned to the ground. But like any place that rakes in a ton of cash, they rebuilt it. It was even more beautiful than the original. Then I bet you can guess what happened next. The thing burned to the ground a second time. The owners didn't need to do the old 3 strikes you're out kind of thing with this bad boy. They came to the realization that the land had some really bad mojo going on there. Nothing has been built there since. Everyone is afraid that whatever gets erected in that place will be in ruins before you know it. At number 8 we have Southtown. This is sort of a tourist area of San Antonio. There's a bunch of bars, restaurants, and people stop there to spend money. That could be why the area has attracted so many ghosts. Strange sightings of ghostly figures popping up in photographs are a regular occurrence in this area. Patrons of many of the restaurants in the area say they have a constant feeling of having someone watching them or that someone's standing right behind them while they're eating. But it's not just random ghost encounters that have made this place a supernatural hotspot. There is one ghost that pops up again and again. There's the ghost of a young boy who claims to be lost and sick, and when people go to help him, he vanishes. He has been named Little Eddie, and legend says he was a young boy living in the area who died from polio many years ago. At number 7 was the Hubner Onion Homestead. Big old buildings tend to have big old ghosts in them. It's just one of the universal rules. Like never double dip in a public dip, and peeing in a pool is fine as long as you don't make it weird. They're all in the same loophole, you know? The building is very creepy, and if you're a fan of eerie things, you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't go and check this place out. But while you're walking around, you might be followed by an unseen party member. The original owner, Joseph Hubner, has decided that he does not want to leave this place, but he would rather stay there for a very long time. His ghost has been seen stumbling through the building, and some people have even felt him grab them by the arm. It's said that he died in the homestead by his own doing. He didn't try to kill himself. This of course tore up his insides and taught every future homeowner never leave kerosene in the liquor cabinet. I don't know if that actually happened, but how did he drink the kerosene? At number 6 we have the Robber Baron Caves. Once you've had your fill of everything above ground, you should check out to see what San Antonio has to offer below the surface. The Robber Baron Caves used to be a secret network of tunnels that were used to transfer liquor throughout Texas when Prohibition was in full swing. There's even a hidden speakeasy that's tucked away inside the caves. Being a hot spot for mobster activity, there was a bunch of people who were murdered down there in cold blood. The ghosts of old-timey gangsters can be seen walking through them at night, and some people said they've heard the swing of a lantern, but when they go to see who it is, there's no one there. At number 5 we have the ghost of Suicide Oak. She was brokenhearted and felt that she had nowhere to turn, so she climbed up an oak tree, tied a noose around her neck, and then jumped off. Her body stayed hanging there, still swinging in the morning when people found her. But that wasn't the end of her story. Her spirit was now attached to the oak tree, and passerbys would see the ghostly figure hanging from the tree. Since then the oak has been torn down, but it's said that the ghost still haunts the area. At number 4 we have the Tyrrell Castle. A castle with a deep dark past full of hatred, sickness, and infidelity. This is the reason you guys come to this channel. The Tyrrell Castle has been a long-standing monument in San Antonio for over a century. It was originally constructed in 1894. There have been some beautiful moments in this fortress, but those moments are outweighed by the bleak. The original owner of the castle, Edwin Holland Tyrrell, had a brutal case of syphilis, which is a horrible disease. It starts as an STI, but as it gets worse, it works its way into your body, infecting your spine, your eyes, and your brain. After suffering for way too long, he shot himself. The only problem was he botched it. A soldier found his wife in bed with another man and swiftly killed them both. The ghosts of all these people are still said to walk the halls, tormenting anyone who spends time there. Fun fact about this place, it's now used for weddings. I guess they don't include the ghost of a cheating wife in the brochure. That would really ruin the mood. At number 3 we have the Devil Wears White. This is the most 70s urban legend I have ever heard of, and I've heard a lot of them working on this channel. One night in 1975, the El Camoncito nightclub had a visitor that took everyone by surprise. A man walked in decked out in the finest white suit anyone had ever seen. This guy was dressed so sharp he made James Bond look like Adam Sandler. Not only that, but he went straight to the dance floor and started throwing it down. People were in awe that this guy could tear it up so good. Every lady in there wanted to go home with this man. Who could dance this fiendishly good? Then as the night wound down, some of the patrons noticed something weird. His feet were a little weird. More than that, he didn't have feet, but he had 2 goat hooves in place of his feet. Everyone freaked out, and all the ladies who wanted to take this man home was like, he's cute, but he's not that cute. Right before things got heated, he burst into flames and was gone. Oh, when the clock strikes midnight, you're gonna turn back into a beast. Also, the whole urban legend is just about the devil dancing. That's amazing. At number 2, for our number 2 spot, we have the Malam Square. Although this place looks like a beautiful date spot with a nice little gazebo, I think a kiss under a moonlight gazebo is every suburban's kid vision of what love should be, until they have their heart ripped out of their chest and they find out that love was just something made up by Disney in the 50s. But Even though this landmark irradiates cuteness, it's actually super grim. The entire place was built on top of a massive burial ground. There are hundreds of Spanish and Native American bodies buried under this lovely little gazebo, and legend says that the Grim Reaper comes to visit this spot to see their souls and try to ease their unrest. So if you ever wanted a selfie with the man in black who has that Skeletor complexion, this is the place to go. And for the #1 spot, we have the Woman of Hollering Creek. This creek in San Antonio is said to be haunted by the famous ghost La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman. It would be only fitting that she haunts a place called Woman Hollering Creek. That's perfect. If you don't know La Llorona, they made a movie about her back in 2019. But the legend says she's a woman who had her children taken away from her. In some versions, she had to kill them to save them from being tortured by bandits. Now her ghost is forever angry and screaming for her lost children. If you were spotted by La Llorona, she might come for you and try to steal your children away for herself. So if you love your kids, don't go this creek. And if you don't love your kids, maybe go to therapy because you have some demons to wrestle with. Jesus Christ, oh my god.
Coming in at number 10, we have Hellgate Bridge. I mean, if you're gonna name your bridge Hellgate Bridge, you really are asking for trouble. In fairness, the bridge is named after the tidal strait it crosses in the East River, but still. Know what sounds like Hellgate? Fellgate. Rename that bridge. The bridge connects Queens to Randall's Island, and it is an on-brand red color. There are a number of urban legends connected to the bridge, including rumors of a killer lurking beneath its arches. However, the main legends here surround the ghost trains. According to local lore, the bridge is haunted by an old train whose passengers are the city's damned. Those who find themselves on the bridge at night report seeing strange lights thundering towards them before they disappear. Others report seeing old, battered trains floating over the river. The legend says that the carriages are filled with people who have lost their lives in the water. Now, these range from murder victims, people who have fallen short of the mafia, suicide jumpers, and historic Dutch explorers. They sit together on the weirdest train ride of all time. Coming in at number 9, we have the legend of Cropsey. Cropsey is Staten Island's very own boogeyman, but the legend coincides with some real-life terrifying stuff. Now, Cropsey was rumored to be a killer with a hook for a hand who had escaped from a mental institution and hunted children. Cropsey was said to live in an old abandoned asylum, the Willbrook Mental Institution. He would then come out late at night and steal children off the streets, torturing them with his hook. In other variants of the story, he would have a bloody axe. Whichever the way it was told, he was out there. Parents would use Cropsey to warn kids not to miss their curfews. Others would use him to tease one another at sleepovers. Sadly, the legend became mixed up in reality in the 1970s and 80s when Staten Island children really started to disappear. Andre Rand started working at the Willowbrook State School, a school for children with learning disabilities that turned out to actually be a very awful and unnurturing place for many reasons. Rand worked there and he abducted and murdered 5 children. He was finally caught in 1987 when a young girl with Down syndrome, Jennifer Schweiger, went missing. According to an acclaimed documentary on the subject, Rand may have been involved in Satanism and was possibly killing the children as ritual sacrifices. Coming into number 8, this city has 8 million rats. NYC dwellers will tell you that the population of rats will soon outnumber the population of people living in the 5 boroughs. Rats, of course, are terrifying for a good number of reasons. They're vermin, they're unclean, they spread disease. Hello, plague anyone? While there are a whole load of rats living in New York City, there's actually around 1 rat to every 4 dwellers, so around 2 million rats, which is a lot of rats, but not 8 million. There will only ever be one pizza rat though, so shout out to him. We could actually do a whole top 10 on the various legends of New York City rats. Some people even think that giant or mutant rats are running riot down there. Cool. Coming into number 7, we have the ghost ship of the Hudson River. The Hudson River separates New York and New Jersey and runs all the way from the ocean up to Albany. The river is an iconic part of New York City and has urban legends of its very own. One popular story is the legend of the Half Moon, the famous ship sailed by Henry Hudson, the namesake of the river. Hudson was lost at sea in 1611, although his ship is sometimes spotted sailing the famous river. One man named Samuel was fishing along the Hudson one evening before a storm when he saw a wooden ship with 3 empty masts. Samuel was confused as he had never seen a boat like this in his life, and he said it drifted 50 feet away from him before disappearing. It seems the legend goes that the half moon is only spotted when times are rough on the river. It serves as a warning for people to stay on dry land until the bad weather passes. Coming into number 6, we have the buried treasure of Liberty Island. Here be treasure, and ghosts. Captain William Kidd was a Scottish pirate who sailed on many an adventure, but he was especially known for his illicit activity around New York City. The famous pirate was said to have stashed a boatload of bounty on Liberty Island, which in those days existed without its famous statue and was called Bedloe Island. After his death in 1701 for piracy, people started looking for Captain Kidd's loot. Two soldiers, Gibbs and Carpenter, went to look for the treasure. They literally thought they'd struck gold when they came across a wooden chest. Before they could open it, they were set upon by what they described as a demon with black skin, horns, and wings. This evil apparition is said to guard the treasure to this day and still stalks Liberty Island at night. Wonder what Lady Libs feels about her neighbor. Coming into number 5, we have killer pennies off the Empire State Building. Ever heard the one about people throwing pennies or cents off the Empire State? With the momentum they pick up from being dropped at such a height, they can allegedly kill innocent people standing below. This is a very popular Manhattan urban legend and genuinely makes people nervous when walking around the base of the iconic building. This is just a scare story though. It's an urban legend. A penny's terminal velocity, the fastest it can fall through air, is 25 miles per hour. Now even when dropped at 1,250 feet, it wouldn't kill someone on the ground. It would hurt for sure, but it wouldn't kill. To be honest, there are so many safety precautions these days that it is very unlikely anyone would be able to launch a projectile off the top of the building. Coming into number 4, we have this secret bunker. I love me a tin hat conspiracy. Legend has it that there is 500 square acres of subterranean city 100 feet under Central Park. Theorists call this secret bunker the Manhattan Project, although I don't know if they know that that name was already taken. These theorists though do think that the secret project predates the atomic bomb, so maybe. To accompany the theory, there is a rather in-depth website that claims that the bunker was built in 1853 and there is still active use going on down there. The site shows picture evidence of the bunker and its clandestine entrances around the park. The site also claims that the bunker is the property of the US government and that both Tsar Nicholas, the overthrown king of Russia, and Adolf Hitler were rescued and lived out their lives there. Hitler under Central Park. Cool. Oh, did I say Tsar Nicholas and Hitler and forgot to mention the aliens? Right. Also, it seems that the Roswell aliens were supposed to have lived down there too. Cool. Sure. Keeping it in Central Park, we have the legend of the ice skating sisters at number 3. This urban legend dates back to a pair of siblings, the Van der Voot sisters, who lived with their overprotective wealthy father in his Manhattan townhouse in the 19th century. Their father, a widower, would rarely let his daughters leave the house, and when they did, they weren't allowed to go far. The furthest he would let them go out would be to ice skate on the 59th Street Pond, located at the southeast section of the park. They enjoyed this tiny slice of freedom so much. Now both siblings unfortunately died spinsters within months of each other in 1880. Around 35 years later, during the First World War, stories started circulating of the two sisters seen gliding over the 59th Street Pond. Now the sightings have occurred frequently ever since, and in all weather. The pond doesn't have to be frozen for this two to skate. The pair are seen in Victoria-era dresses, one wearing red and the other wearing purple. The sisters enjoy such fame as an urban legend that even the New York Times ran an article on them in 1997. Coming into number 2, we have John Lennon and the ghost of the Dakota Building. So just across the road from Central Park is the Dakota Building. It's a New York City landmark. Built in 1884, it was already shrouded in mystery and paranormal whisperings before providing the backdrop to John Lennon's murder in 1980. The former Beatle, of course, was shot outside the front steps by David Chapman. John lived in the building with Yoko Ono, who claims to have seen his ghost sitting in their apartment ever since. She isn't the only one who has seen his apparition either. In 1983, Joey Harrow and Amanda Moore saw him standing at the entrance looking pensive. It seems John is just one of a number of ghosts haunting the famous building. Lennon himself said that he saw a spirit of the crying lady. This is supposed to be the ghost of a former manager of the building. The Dakota is also said to be haunted by the ghost of a young blonde girl in a yellow taffeta dress. Residents of the building to this day still report a lot of strange goings on. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most famous NYC urban legends. Behold the legend of the sewer alligators. In New York City, there has been a legend for decades upon decades that alligators exist in the sewer. The urban legend dates back to the 1930s and goes that wealthy people would bring baby gators back from their trips to Florida and the southeastern states. When the gators got too much for them, they'd simply flush them down the toilet and the snappy chappies would end up in the sewer, where they'd breed with other abandoned pets. In 1932, the New York Times reported an alligator spotted along the Bronx riverbank, and 3 years later, teenagers told news outlets that they saw one crawl out of the sewer. People still claim to see gators in New York City today, despite many refuting the claims. That being said, a 2-foot caiman was caught in Central Park in 2001, so the legend more than prevails.